Now, I'd like to invite my panelists. Yes, Angel. Angel, nice meeting you. Finally, we met.
It's a fireside chat.
Rob Charles is Rob here. Rob, please come. We will talk about online fundraising, but first I want to thank Ahmet Rafai for inviting me, and it's always exciting to be here. Welcome. Hi, how are you? And thank you. Please, Angel. Here, this way. Yes, there, Rob. And nowadays, all kind of disruption is important, so it's very excited for me to be on the stage. But there's another excitement that I'm on stage is because my ex-boss and first boss, Mr. Atilla Köksal, is visiting from Turkey. I strongly recommend to meet him. He has many heads, but I'll just tell two of them. One of them is he's an ex-board member of CFA Society, and after a long time of investment banking, now he's giving back to the society by being the chairman of Financial Literacy Society in Turkey. I learned a lot from it. Thank you. Now, to set up the tone of the conversation, I want to tell, when the pandemic started, we have seen lots of liquidity. All the central banks decreased the interest rates, all the governments take action, and there's ample liquidity in the society. And when we look at the stock market, some people believe that it doesn't come from the valuation, it comes some part from the liquidity. Even Tesla was $1 trillion lately, there was on the news. But when we look at the fundraising part, sometimes this liquidity doesn't come to the investors. And when we look at the money, there's a mismatch. So I want to speak with you. What's the reason why investors cannot find easily fundraising? And what are the new methods of fundraising instead of directly going to a bank or a VC? So, Rob, I want to start with you. First, can you briefly introduce yourself? What you do and what Goldfinger do.
Sure, thank you. My name is Rob Charles. I'm founder and CEO of Goldfinger. We're the first virtual global investment club founded in 2014 in New York. And now we have a global network of influential people and amazing investors and innovators that are working together to fund the next wave of innovation. So next waves of innovation.
Thanks, Rob. Angel, what about you, your background, and what does FinTech Connector do?
Sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Angel Laurenti from New York. I am the founder and CEO of FinTech Connector. Similar to what Rob does, except we're very focused on the financial services, innovation, and FinTech space. What we do is really bring together FinServ professionals, financial services professionals, we call them enablers and FinTech innovators together to really create that next generation of financial services innovation. It could be through thought leadership, right? What we like to call human capital to bring people together on these initiatives, or it could be by introducing them to investors that might help them on that journey as well.
Thank you. And also myself, besides being the TV presenter, and my background is asset management, and I'm in the startup ecosystem a lot, and I try to help startups for funding or for go-to-market. And this is typical two questions. We are looking for funding or we want to get into UAE market. So first, let us start. In the life cycle of a startup, why do startups look for money, and what's the traditional way of looking for this money?
So, well, first off, let me give my background a little bit. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years and a tech entrepreneur for 25 years. So, so usually in the past, I've been able to bootstrap. I usually come in, use my own resources, put in my own money to get the company off the ground. But it's very, very difficult as an entrepreneur to build companies. Even previous to COVID-19, now it's even more difficult. And basically, at the end of the day, entrepreneurs spend, the level of difficulty to execute a company is extremely difficult. And so they need resources. They always need resources. And So there's only so many different ways to actually start a company and bootstrap a company. Either you go spend the time to raise capital, which takes about 70% of their time to get seed investment, or you become resourceful and offer some equity to some co-founders, or get people to work for maybe not as much money up front, but to work for equity or sweat equity. And so a lot of times, the typical, let's say, tech model, Silicon Valley tech model would be you raise like 30 to 50K for an MVP. Then that's the most expensive money that you, because the company's valued lower. So when you raise 30 to 50K, you're giving out a large portion of the company in equity. So the alternatives are you can find a way to create the MVP without taking on the investment. But in order to do that, you still have to give out some sort of sweat equity or so forth. So, and it's an ongoing process. Like you were saying about early stage, what we found it could be pre-seed, seed, A, B, C. It's an ongoing process. And also, like you said, everyone's raising money these days. And it's really archaic when it comes down to it. I mean, the fact that investors are still looking at deals in emails baffles me because it's very time consuming. I barely use emails anymore. I mean, unless it's just to send a document or my team or so forth. It's completely inefficient. And when you even go between, I always say there's plenty of capital on the planet, and there's plenty of amazing, innovations and amazing opportunities. However, there's a disconnect. For me, it all boils down to communications. And then at the same time, there's, even through different markets, if you look in just, for example, in the United States, between West Coast deal flow and New York, or East Coast, you can see a lot of, for example, a lot of tech startups out of Silicon Valley, or cannabis deals, for example, hemp and cannabis, but you don't see it in the East Coast as much. Same thing, and that goes globally from market to market. For example, one of our initiatives here is to bring in deal flow and innovations into the UAE GCC region from around the planet. And everyone's super connected. However, there's this, everyone's works in their own little ecosystems, and there's no cross communications from these different markets and different investors, really.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Angel, I want to ask you the same question. Now let's set up the overall picture. Then I want to ask later on what are the new trends and what are the new possibilities. What are the ticket sizes that generally startups are looking and at which stage, and what are the challenges for them? And also Rob mentioned the difference between the regions. Yes, can be different, UAE can be different. Yeah. Can you give us the current situation?
Sure. No, I think Rob hit on a number of key points regarding kind of that first check, right? It's, be targeted in terms of what you need that check for, and try to get it in the door, because it does take a lot of time to raise funds at whatever stage you're at. But particularly at that startup stage, when you might be one or two people, two co-founders, maybe even one co-founder, it could take up 75 to 80% of your time. So guess what? Now you got to strike a balance of, I'm spending 80% of the time fundraising so I could keep my business alive, and I only got 20% to work on the operations at MVP and so forth. So it is a problem. Location is key. I think location is key. If you're a startup, and again, we're taking it now from the U.S. point of view, that's where we're both from, but you could then kind of lay that out to wherever you're from. What are those regions? In the U.S., if you're a startup in the technology space, if you're Silicon Valley, you could literally go door to door, and just kind of, knock on the door, and hopefully somebody will listen to you, right? And it's not that it's easier, but you have more of that availability. In the fintech space, particularly, being in New York is a good thing. But don't get me wrong, I think fintech startups in Silicon Valley, again, have that opportunity of knocking on those doors and getting in. But what is good from a fintech perspective, being in New York, is you have the banks right there. You have a lot of innovation hubs that are in New York that then puts you in front of the institutions that potentially could partner with you at some point, or might want to invest in you to see how this technology evolves and eventually could be bought in-house, acquired, partnered, whatever that is. So, I think of things like Barclays Techstar. I mean, they're also in the UK and other parts of the world now, but in New York, they're a huge innovation hub for fintech. So I think that's important as well in terms of location. As it relates to new trends, I like to kind of break it out between pre-COVID and kind of some of what COVID and then kind of post-COVID. I think pre-COVID, is about the face-to-face interaction, right? If you really wanted to get funded, you needed to knock on those doors, get in, hopefully get a meeting with someone, whether that's sending emails, which we don't use anymore as much, but it was about, hey, how do I get an introduction? How do I get a meeting? And then how do I present my company? And hopefully I can move to the next level. COVID changed that. The reality is those real-world meetings were not happening, so we all kind of, investors as well as startups, had to really start thinking about how do we use Zoom or whatever platform to have these meetings. And of course, we saw the explosion in investments at all levels. So we started to see that more of, all right, we don't have to be face-to-face. We could actually do this Zoom, and it might be multiple Zoom meetings. But now you also opened up the opportunity that you don't have to fly around the world. You could actually meet with people around the world and maybe stack up meetings one after the other. So that actually helped increase the velocity of opportunities to potentially be in front of multiple investors from around the world. I think now post-COVID, we're going to go back to a trend. I don't think we're going to lose the whole face-to-face. I mean, some startups are here today to have face-to-face meetings with investors. I think that's still important, that face-to-face interaction. But I don't think we're going to go back to what it was pre-COVID. We're going to still have the Zoom opportunities opening up doors. And then you're going to see the evolution of what I like to say is other platforms that are going to give us that. I think you were talking about it the other day around tokenization, right? In terms of how do we now, not just opening up investors to accredited investors or VCs, but really opening that up to even individual investors. But I think we need to still go through a number of regulatory hurdles to get there.
Thank you, Angel. So you mentioned about innovation hubs, and also sometimes startups find me and I want to help them, but I am telling them instead of going one by one, you also apply to an accelerator, for example, the AFC FinTech Hub, because then you are on the stage and more people see you. So, Rob, what do you think about it? And maybe there are some people here who are looking for funding or tried funding. Where should they start? I mean, if I'm a founder of a startup, what should be the practical steps for looking for funding?
Well, the practical steps with us with Goldfinger, or just in generally speaking?
Both.
Okay. So, I mean, traditionally we're not talking about DeFi at the moment or crowdfunding, but traditional equity capital raising or investing. There's only so many different options that are out there. One is you can go on LinkedIn and try to troll through LinkedIn like most people do, and this is why people just get bombarded with deals that they don't know who they are, what they are. It's not very effective at all. Second is you can hire an intermediary, a deal maker, and pay them a retainer typically. And of course, people that are raising capital want people to work for free. What I always tell people is like, well, that's great. Why don't you go work for Goldfinger for free? And if you succeed, I'll pay you. It's not a very good thing, right?
I'm going to use that.
And it's also very time consuming and expensive. Also, they can hire investment bankers, which is another higher retainer from $20,000 to $50,000 per month, which a startup doesn't have. And no guarantee of success, which you can't guarantee capital raise anyway. It's illegal to guarantee that. And then you can go into like a traditional investment platform like OurCrowd or AngelList. And by the way, that doesn't really work that well either, because 70% of the investments in those traditional platforms go offline. They go to communications platforms like he's talking about, Zoom and so forth, right? So this is basically it's completely inefficient. And so what we've done is we've studied. I personally have studied for the last 7 years, every day, all day, investors and entrepreneurs from every market for every type of deal, and we've been able to streamline this in a technology where we are able to screen the deals, and we take them from 100 deals down to 10, the top 10 deals, because it's when you're talking about traditional investing, non-institutional investing, traditional investing in private equity is it's very subjective. It's like art. One person might like this painting, but another person may not. And it could be a timing thing as well. So maybe someone just lost some money in the market and they're out. So the usual time to engagement per investor, it's 3 to 7 months in private equity. No one likes to hear it, but that's the reality. And it's usually 3 to 7 engagements per investor. So you look at it, it's like a number. For me, it's a numbers game. It's sales. It's been going on for decades. Dale Carnegie 101. 100, 10 to 1 rule. 100 calls, 10 appointments, 1 close. So, and so what happens is people go to friends and family and they hit up their contacts. Let's say there's 100. Well, out of one of those, they're going to close, but by the numbers, or maybe 1 or 2%. And then they're out of resources and they're now off searching. For what we've been able to do is take all the use cases, streamline it, and we hit it from every single angle. We do from in-person. We have our own platform, which we rolled out during COVID. We pivoted. So we were able to do virtual meetings, virtual events for pitches, AI matching with our investor network of over 100,000 investors. So the deals are matched to the investors. There's also with the companies, even our own chat follow-up. So it's basically like a WeChat for investing, one system for deals, and it streamlines everything. And what we've done is been able to say, okay, instead of trying to go out through let's say all these events, everyone's running around. I find it sort of humorous in Expo in the last 2 months because there's like 500 events and everyone's scurrying around all these different places and getting a bunch of cars. But if there's no follow-up, there's no deals that are done, right? It's like it's completely. And when you come into a place like this, and Ahmed has done a great job at pulling in like top people in here, or you go to a conference or somewhere, there's probably out of, let's say 100% of the people, maybe 1% that I actually wanted to speak with, and the rest is noise. So, so I personally traveled around the world and just went to all these different conferences and all these different people that I know, and then I just screened out a lot of the noise and just put them into a club and said, here, you have direct access to it. So it saves you time, energy, money. So it's not like a time machine, really. It's like it just. And then the same thing is what's going on within our ecosystem. We indoctrinated 11 principles in our network, because investors, I've seen investors come in and be super critical on an entrepreneur, and I said, hey, we're here to help the entrepreneur. You might not like the deal, or you might not like the opportunity. However, this guy's doing something that 99% of the people would never do and succeed at, right? Is because they're out there, the innovators that are changing the world. So let's open doors and help them or give them feedback and it helped them in some way as opposed to being, even if you're not interested in the deal. So and that's all part of the community and ecosystem. So we've coupled all these different things and hit it from every angle. And it's never perfect, of course. It's always a work in progress, but it's been quite successful.
Angel, you want to add something? And also, I want to add one more. I mean, you said we are back to normal. I think Dubai is more than back to normal with Expo and lots of events. Since the topic is online fundraising, also can you give some best practices like any global or regional fundraising examples or any platforms that you know?
Sure. So I'm just going to add to what Rob said as from my personal story, because I think, and I'm going to talk about community. And I know you're big on community as well, and you mentioned that the other night, and I was just honed in on that. But even if you're a startup, create a community, create a following, right? I think that's important because from there you could find evangelists that will really be those early adopters and those early believers. From my personal experience with FinTech Connector, when we decided to take it from a meetup group to actually saying, we're onto something here where we could really connect people in meaningful ways on how to advance financial services innovation, we created a platform and we started inviting people from around the world through connections that we made, not just, hey, it's open to everyone, really targeted people. We then added value to those people, whether it was connections to other opportunities or so forth. And ultimately, when we were ready to say, hey, we're ready to turn this into something more than a meetup group and we need funds, those were the first people that became our first angel investors. Yeah, but it took time. It wasn't a matter of, I went around for 6 months. It actually took about 1.5 years before we actually started getting these believers that came saying, hey, how can I help? And they ended up cutting a check, their own personal investment checks, right, as angel investors into FinTech Connector, which gave us the traction then to start building a platform and then showing more value. And that helped us then to get other community folks saying, hey, how can I help? Right? And I said, well, you could help me by cutting the check. And, and some said no, said, look, I'm not ready for that, but I could help you in this way, and that's fine. And we took that. But others were, they did open their wallet. So it's important to do that. If you're really starting out and you really need those first checks and you're not getting success going the venture route and so forth, then reach out to your network, reach out to your community, add value, and then ask them to in return if they could give you value. And one of that is cutting your check, right? Because that's going to help you get to the next level. As it relates to something I'm actually going to mention before, as we close, is one of the projects that I was recently brought to my attention. It's actually through one of our members. He's one of our investors and advisors. He's the CEO of Angivest in Bahrain, and they're now creating a platform called Bambucorn. And my understanding is, of last he told us, is they actually have a provisional kind of innovator license in the UAE to start actually testing their platform. It's an equity crowdfunding platform in a digitized form. So in other words, by issuing digital tokens and then opening that up to retail investors as well. So they are now kind of in the testing phase, and they've been approved. But I think that's the type of innovation we want to start seeing, right? We go from the traditional accredited investors, VCs, to more people getting involved through different crowdfunding platforms as well, which based on regulations, you still would need to be accredited depending on what region and where you are in the world. I'm not from here, so I don't know what those requirements are here in the UAE. But what we then are starting to see now is the shift, right? I'm not talking about ICOs here. I'm talking about security token offerings and equity component that actually gives you an equity investment through these digitized tokens that then you could trade almost like in a retail market. But again, there's going to be a lot of regulation because we need to protect the investors, and especially now when you move into the retail space, there is clearly in essence that you got to make sure the protections are in place. But what that's going to do is really now open up the ability to be able to, for companies that are looking for money to tap into a wealth of hopefully funds that they could bring indoor.
Sorry, time is flight. I mean, can I give an extra time a little bit?
Just
Okay.
a tiny little bit, yeah.
Oh, tiny little. Okay, since we are over time, I mean, so it's your takeaway message for the audience, and maybe one question from the audience. Just 1 second. We'll take questions. Takeaway message, one sentence.
Takeaway message, if you're investor, if you're raising money, which most people are, would love to speak with you and how we can help you with Goldfinger and our community. You can go to Goldfinger, GOLDFINGR.io. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Angel?
Great. I'm just going to leave it. I think it's an exciting time to be a startup. There's a lot of money out there. I don't know if you've read the news, even some of the big venture capital firms in the U.S. are now looking to put more money into the seed stage. So I'm sure that's going to echo around the world as well. So definitely if you're a startup, you've got a good idea, maybe already a business in play, definitely reach out and start looking at where the opportunities are. From my perspective, FinTech Connector, we are always looking for the right partners and investors to help us on our journey to connect the FinTech world.
Okay. I saw 2 hands, and if first gentleman in front. Maybe
Very, very quickly, we've got to move on. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Great discussion. I have a question to Bob, please. Now, if I'm a startup and I register at Goldfinger, what do I get in detail? I mean, do I have to pay a monthly fee? Do I get appointments? I still don't really get the details. If there is a deal, who has to pay what? You could give us, some more details about it.
Sure, absolutely. So this is what a lot of people always ask us. They say, well, what do I get? Like, what are the benefits? Do I get free drinks? Or do I get, this event over here, this great venue and all that? Yeah, you get all that stuff too, but that's not where the value is. The value is in insurance and the fact that you actually succeed, okay, because the people that we have in the network and investors that we have in it, I don't know how, countless times I've had my own members save my behind into going down the wrong directions. You're talking about entrepreneurs with 4 exits, 6 exits, right? Investors that are telling you, hey, you should go this way. If you go this way, I'll put in capital, or just resources in general, right? So it's really the values in the community and the direct access and the people that you're never I always say in New York, I've been in New York for 20 years and went to New York 2 different times and built my way through New York. And to get in the right room with the right people is priceless. So that's really the key is we provide access. People that, for example, you'll never take your call, because it's all built on relationships.
So I pay a membership basically to enter.
There's different subscriptions. There's a freemium model, and there's different access. And then you look at it this way, it's how much of your time. You spend 70% of your time every month doing this. So what's your time worth? I don't know about yours, but mine's my most valuable asset. So you can go do it yourself and spend 70% of the time and take the time and waste the money and potentially fail, which happens most often if you look at the stats. Or you can just be rocketed into the right people, in the right group, if it's screened and embedded and approved. That way everyone knows that everyone in the room is let's say, worth looking into for an opportunity, right? So we can't promise, like I said before, you can never promise investment, but we promise that we get you into the right people in the most efficient way, in the most effective way, and the most frequent.
One last quick question, sorry.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Ahmed. My name is Ahmed. Great conversation. I'm a local investor. I invested in Dubai in real estate. How you can convince me to invest abroad or invest in international market? What is the guarantee I'm going to get? Like, for instance, I have been invested in Dubai for the past 25 years, and I'm very happy with my investment here, which I triple and more than triple also. So how you can invest me? Can you convince me as a local investor to invest abroad or invest in your company? What is the guarantee I'm going to get? Thank you.
You guarantee that what? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the question. The guarantee that you're going to make money?
Yeah, in terms of my
I'll tell you what, you give me a guarantee that I make money and I'll give you more money that you know what to do with. There's no guarantees.
There's no guarantees in
here's the guarantees in life. Death and taxes. That's the basic guarantee. So, and what there's no guarantee. You go direct, we want SpaceX, we have SpaceX right now. You go direct to them. That's the guarantee. I mean, you go to them and you go straight to the deal that we've taken the time and there's all these different deals and opportunities. And that's for you as the investor to do your own due diligence. And we started doing due diligence years ago. And one of the reasons, by the way, companies like AngelList and our crowd, if you study the business models, can never be unicorns because they don't scale because they drill down to the due diligence. I did the exact opposite. All the investors like, why don't you drill down? Why don't you drill down? I said, no. I focused on the 70% that everyone missed. It's the 70%, which is the communications aspect of this, right? So, and because even when we did do our due diligence, drill down, you're still going to do your own due diligence because you're not going to take my word for it because it's your money, not mine. So, so there's no guarantee in anything. But please, if you find something, let me know, and I'll be happy. I'll put in more than you can possibly imagine if you can guarantee me something. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Angel. And please give a big applause to our gentleman. And thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, raising money is the name of the game, so that's why we had so many questions. Thank you very much indeed.